time of use basically just means that depending on when you use your power, that's going to determine how much you're paying for that power. So it's not a fixed monthly, cost that you pay.
Hello, everyone. Moise is back here. Another episode with the Huddle. On today's episode, Solar Playbook, we have a good friend of ours. We actually are doing this and broadcasting this from California. We have Korbin with us. He's one of our top sales reps in California. So I'm going to give him about 5 minutes so he can go ahead and introduce himself. Go ahead and take it away, Korbin.
I'm Korbin Lynn. I'm actually originally from Utah. And me and my wife, we just recently moved out to the California market back in October. But I've been doing solar for a while, and ES Solar's by far treated me the best, my customers the best, and and now I'm one of the regional managers for the second Sacramento team, so that just barely happened, and I'm excited. Yeah, we're making a lot of headway out there.
Yeah, super exciting. I remember you started setting for the company originally, and then you came in, became one of the top setters for the company. And then just last year, we won a contest and we went to a hockey game. We chatted a little bit and you said, yeah, I'm actually going to be moving to California. I feel like there is a better opportunity over there and the company needs the help as well. Plus, it sounds like the company probably gave you an opportunity as well. And you took it. You said, let's go for it. You're young and you were ready to go ahead and make that happen. So you're doing it.
Yeah, it's been kind of a cool transition, ES is filled with a lot of opportunities, and Zach Randall, he talks a lot about jumping off of the roller coaster, right? The people who leave when things get hard, right. They're the ones who get hurt, and it's cool. I'm happy to be here, and I love the company.
Let's just talk a little bit about ES Solar overall. What was some of the things that you liked the most?
Well, so I used to sell solar out in the Southern California market before I joined ES.
Okay.
And so I work for a smaller company. There's a lot of solar companies out there, and a lot of them are what's called dealers, right? So they're essentially a sales force, and they just kind of sell the deals to like a subcontractor, right? So they subcontract out all the work, and everything is, split up. You have Joe Schmo Electric going and actually doing the install. And so anyway, when I was done, I moved back to Utah after I was done selling for that company, and I was looking for a new solar company to work for. And I just, kind of looked around the neighborhood that I grew up in, and my mom still lives in that neighborhood. And I actually went door to door and just talked to all of my neighbors that had solar panels on their roof, because I wanted to figure out, if they had a good experience and so on and so forth. And anyway, like I went and I talked to all my neighbors that had solar, and the majority of them had worked with ES Solar. And I was like, wow. And they all had nothing but great things to say. And, they got treated amazingly throughout the install process, through sales, everything was clear. And that's ultimately kind of how I came to my decision that I was going to pursue a career with ES Solar. Yeah.
So, just jumping into our conversation, obviously you decided to move to California after being here in Utah. So let's go ahead and take the topic that way, because obviously there was something that attracted you to move to California and be able to sell as well. So what do you think, what are some of the most common misconceptions with California customers about going solar right now? Like what are some of the things? Obviously we're talking about California, right? California is, solar array. There's so many homes out there that have solar panels, but they're missing a piece, right? So talk to me a little bit about, California overall and customers, and what do you think is working with the solar right now in California?
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions with solar in California that a lot of people, quote unquote, miss their window to get solar. A lot of people think that too many things has changed, that solar is not as good as it was. And it's not so much that solar isn't good anymore. It's more so that there's been changes with the way the utility company purchases a solar customer's excess power. And over time, whenever you add too many solar panels in an area, there's too much power that's being backfed to the grid at the same time during the day, and they don't necessarily need it at that time, right? We work heavily with SMUD. We work with all the different utility companies out in California, and all these utility companies, they're taking in a ton of power, but then nothing at night. So anybody who got solar after 2022, they're selling a lot of their power that they generate to the utility company for pennies on the dollar, Moise, right? And so the biggest thing that we're doing out in California are the batteries, right? We're able to go in and firm up people's solar systems. Instead of selling your power to the utility company for nickels on the dollar and having to buy it back at night when power's super expensive, you could just store it right in your battery, use it right directly in your home. You have the peace of mind of knowing that if a power outage ever occurs, you have some assistance there, and you kind of be taken care of. So
it's so crazy when you said about people. A lot of people believe that they miss the solar, what we call solar coaster, right? Like, things have changed. It's not the same. I believe the reality of things is technology keeps advancing, right? I think we had an episode where we had Brandon. He was talking about how he believes solar panels may probably, they're not going to get better, or possibly will, but not as much as batteries, right? So now in California, batteries are becoming huge, and not just in California, but overall, but there's other states that are following the steps of California as well, where there's a lot of homes with a lot of solar. But again, time of use came into existence. So now that's when you can benefit a lot more too as well, having a battery, right? So tell me a little bit about the curve, Doc. Obviously, for people that are watching these that are perhaps California or outside of California, what is that? Because I believe that may actually happen in other states if they don't get solar and battery together, right? Because there's going to be so much solar panels, but not a battery. So maybe explain that to me. Maybe I have it completely wrong. That's why you're the expert, right? So tell me a little bit more about what is that?
Well, so the duck curve is California's graph that represents. It's like a representation of grid instability due to solar and kind of just everything as it pertains to the grid as a whole.
Okay.
And what's happened is, whenever somebody gets a solar system, a lot of people think that all the power they generate is being used directly in the home, and that if the power goes out, they're good, right? They're, in a sense, islanded or off the grid. I hear that a lot. And it's just not true. There's building codes, there's laws in place that still require a homeowner to be attached to the grid, right? So what ends up happening a lot of the time is most solar systems, they send a lot of the power they generate to the grid at the same time during the day as tens of thousands of other customers, right? And then at night when the sun sets, everybody's solar systems quit, right? They stop working, the sun's not out, there's not enough power to be generated, and then all those people who weren't necessarily relying as much on the grid during the day, whether you have solar or not, everybody has to draw off of the grid. So that's right. Partially why we see the utility companies switching to time of use, right? Because they understand that there's just a higher demand, right? When people, when their solar system stop generating, power is going to cost more, based on demand.
Right. So going with, you talk about time of use. So let's get into that topic, because it's newer here in Utah, but it's been a thing in California for, maybe a couple of years, a few years. I don't know the full details, but how does time of use rates impact the solar system's design and as well the customer's energy habits? Because obviously, energy habits. I mean, I remember when I got my system, I was like, I have solar system, so now let's go ahead and use more power. And then I started realizing with my app, oh my gosh, I'm using a lot of power when I shouldn't. And then time of use came along, and now I started learning when to utilize certain things at home, or how to use my power or my energy, right? So tell me a little bit about time of use.
So time of use is a rate schedule. So Utah, and there's different types of rate schedules with every different utility, right? But time of use basically just means that depending on when you use your power, that's going to determine how much you're paying for that power. So it's not a fixed monthly, cost that you pay.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's not the same rate. Like if you use power in the morning, it's going to cost a different amount than it does in the middle of the day and then at night, throughout the seasons. And when it pertains to solar, it's really something that is very important. And this is why the batteries are so beneficial, because, for example, right, I've worked with plenty of people that they're selling their power during the day to the utility company when power is really cheap, and they're getting credited for that cheap credit, right? Based on when the utility company's charging them. And then they have to go right back and buy that power back for 3 to 4 to 5 times more than what they sold it for during the day. So our philosophy, with ES Solar is you're able to store that power you would otherwise just be giving to the utility company. You just store it in the battery and then use it when you need it.
Okay. Well, and it totally makes sense, right? Because as you were mentioning earlier, you have the solar panels producing that go give power to your home, but then what happens to the excess, right? So that's where the battery comes into place, and that's where people can benefit. And instead of paying these high rates on time of use, right? Instead of paying these high rates, they can utilize their battery and draw power from the battery on those times. Does that sound right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, for example, right, I work in SMUD territory a lot, and with SMUD from 5 to 8 p.m., power costs 36 cents. Most of the people with solar, they're selling their power during the day for 7 cents, and they have to buy it back for 36. So with a battery, it's very beneficial. You're able to store that power and then use it when power, is expensive, and you could just use the power you saved earlier in the day.
So with that said, and obviously this is all about California, so I don't want to talk too much about Utah or other states, but what are some of the programs that currently may be available in California for customers who believe the time to get into solar or get a battery, it's gone? What are some of the great benefits or incentives perhaps that may be available right now for customers that today is the time? Because I remember, I think maybe like last year, SMUD had a great incentive, went away for a little bit, came back again, and now I think, I don't know all the details, but I think they dropped the cost of the rebate. So please just tell me a little bit more. What are some of the options available right now for customers?
Yeah, so one thing that is available to everybody, and this is something that really excites me, is the federal tax credit went away, right? So this is a tax credit that used to be from the government, and it was a 30% tax credit. That went away, but now we can utilize like a commercial tax credit. So we can actually give people the same benefits, and they could get like a 25% discount up front. So I think that's been one of the most exciting, incentives that are still available. All the different utility companies have different rebates. I can speak for SMUD. In particular, SMUD has a really cool battery program to where they'll actually pay you to, thousands of dollars to install these batteries, which not only is benefiting the homeowner directly, but now it's benefiting the grid as a whole, right? Because you're taking less stress off of the grid, and so people are getting paid thousands of dollars up front, and they're getting ongoing performance rebates as well, which is super exciting.
So you're basically saying they're getting incentives that are available from the government still through a commercial, incentive, but then on top of that, they can go ahead and get utility incentives or rebates on top of that, so then they can see the discount up front. I remember when I did my system, I had to wait for a year, to file my taxes and be able to get those credits, but I still needed to qualify, right? So is that not the case anymore? Now you can get that up front? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think, I've been in the solar industry for a long time, and I think this has been one of the biggest issues with solar in the past is that when I'm talking to a customer, there's no way for me to know exactly what somebody's tax liability is.
Right.
And that 30% tax credit is solely based on the person who is purchasing the solar system's tax liability. And this has happened with every solar company out there, to where these customers, they're claiming the tax credit over 5 or 6 years. And now it's a lot simpler. We work with a company, they're going to claim a commercial tax credit, and you just get a 25% discount upfront.
I mean, one of the things I remember when I got my system, it's as well, going to these CPAs or tax expert, right? And not knowing how to apply these incentives correctly. So a lot of times it wasn't, I mean, in my experience, like I said, I'm just speaking from my experience, it wasn't just about the company, right? The company did what it's supposed to. They explained to me how these incentives work. But the other part is they said, hey, go to your tax expert, your CPA. He'll know or she'll know what to do, right? And sometimes they didn't know what to do. I remember going to somebody and they didn't know how to help me. And at that time, I decided to buy an EV car as well. So it was different incentives. Yeah. And I just remember that person going completely crazy about all these extra incentives. So a lot of it has to do as well with certain people not knowing about these incentives. So that is better now that you get those discounts or those incentives up front and you don't have to wait for that, So that's amazing. So thank you so much for explaining that. Now let's jump into financial options. What are some of the great financial options available for customers? Obviously, we would prefer cash, as a company, we prefer cash, but we understand that a lot of people don't have the cash. So how much would it cost me up front for me to either get a battery or even get a new solar system in my home? What are some of the financing options available right now?
Yeah, I mean, we have incredible financing options, and I'm so grateful for our lender partners and the credit unions that we work with, because it truly does make it so much easier and feasible for customers to make that switch, because in most cases people are already paying a ton of money to the utility company,
right?
And we have options that are there's nothing up front. They don't have to write a check, they don't have to do anything up front, and then they get their first payment and it's pretty competitive to what they're already paying. Right? So we're really just using money that they're already paying to the utility company to then pay for something that's going to pay for itself. It's going to, every payment you're making, you're actually paying something off. And it's pretty cool. We're able to help out a lot of families because of those options.
Either way, you're going to have to pay for an electric bill, right? And like what you're saying, a lot of times it sounds like we go to people's homes, look at their electric bill, find out if we can go and replace that bill for a new system that at the end of the day, they can actually end up paying off. Eventually, a big topic or a big, misconception as well is if I get solar panels and I get a battery, I will not longer get a power bill. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You still have that connection fee, as part of the process to be connected with the grid. But the biggest piece of it as well, and I'm one of those individuals, it's my consumption changed because I realized I got panels and I realized I had a battery, so I went and got an EV. So what is that gonna do? Obviously create more, I'm gonna have to use more power, right? Not just that, we get new electronics, new phones, new computers, you get those electric bikes and all these different things that we're connecting. So our consumption does change as well. But that's the beautiful thing about having the app. You're able to analyze and utilize the time of use, the best time on whenever makes most sense for you. And that's one of the things that, I do like to talk about. Again, as a customer, my consumption did change because I saw those benefits. And I imagine you probably get to see that a lot, right?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and I'm actually kind of glad you brought that up. That was something I wanted to talk about. So there's a lot of new homes that are constantly being built every day, right? And there's new state laws in California that require all these new built homes to have solar panels built onto them. And the thing about it is that when the builders, put these panels on people's roofs, it's because they have to. right? So there's plenty of people that I've personally worked with that have these solar systems and they're just not quite generating enough for their home. And that is a very common thing for us to run into, to where, one of our technicians can come out to the home, give you a free consultation, firm up your solar system by adding a backup battery, and as well as adding more panels so that you're producing more than what you're using.
I can't remember. I think I was at a home show and I was talking to somebody that is a builder. Obviously, we're talking about two different states, right? So you're pointing out in California, they're building a lot of new homes that require to have solar system and a battery to help the grid. And I remember talking to these builders, like, that's never going to be the case. Consumption is going up, and a lot of things are changing to where they're gonna need to be charged, right? So electricity is going to be a need, and it's it's going to be there no matter what. So Korbin, so obviously we know that you're one of our top sales. You're a manager now. You've been here with the company for what, a couple of years now, is that right? A couple of years. So what are some of the things, let's say that I'm a customer, or I'm about to be a customer, and I'm looking to trying to find the right company to go and get solar with, and without trying to be biased, why do you think I should look for an ES Solar or on a company overall to trying to get a battery or a solar system?
I think ES, our number one priority is 100% customer satisfaction. And a lot of people say that, but I've worked with enough people, because our company's not perfect, right? Like it's construction, and sometimes we make mistakes, but I've just witnessed it enough to see that ES Solar is going to go back and fix something if something happens. I run into people every day. I'm going to tell you a story real quick. This is a month and a half ago. He got solar back in 2013, and his system never got turned on. So the solar company that he worked with, they subcontract everything out. That's kind of what I was talking about initially, but there's all these companies that kind of do all this subcontracting, and everything's kind of a mess. A ton of different people are a part of the project, and it's just kind of a headache for the customer.
Right.
Well, this customer had a 10-year headache. His system never got turned on. It's been 10 years, and we're finally able to help him out so that he could see the true benefits of initially getting a solar system. We can help turn it on, get it past the city inspections, as well as firming up the system with a battery. So
I appreciate you sharing that story. I mean, obviously, look at a company that's going to be here. We do everything in house. That's one of the topics you were saying, and I didn't know that you actually did solar before coming to ES Solar. So that's great, knowing that you actually try other companies and what it's like to work with a company that is going to outsource the whole process or some of the processes, and a company that does everything in-house, which that is us, right? So some tips, again, I'm looking for another company too. Do you have any tips that you can give me and to be prepared, or what questions you think I should ask to a solar rep? What are some of the questions as a new customer that wants to know about solar? What will be some of the things that I should be asking you to make sure that I make an educational decision and that I'm choosing the right company to work with?
I think the biggest thing is just finding the company that's going to take care of you. They're not outsourcing the whole project. They do everything in-house, making sure that the system's going to be sized properly, because everybody's needs are different. So you could meet with somebody, who there's 2 people living in the home versus someone who lives with 6 people in the home. And, that's all just stuff that we need to look at so that we can make sure that we're going to put our customers in a better situation and, and truly help them out so that we can plan for the future and everything. But yeah, I'd say like the biggest tip is probably just, making sure that you do your research and you're working with a company that's going to stick around.
Right. Now, one thing that I do want to, that I like to point out too as well is that the way we run our customers are totally different. First appointment is going to their home, trying to help them out, figure out if a system even makes sense for their home. without any pressures. Find out what they need, what their necessities are based on your home, like you were mentioning as well. And you probably having, work with other companies. A lot of these other companies, you have these sales rep that come in on the first day and they want to close you right then and then, because they may never get that chance, right? And I mean, that's why I love ES Solar. I never felt that way on my first appointment. It was mostly educational, providing my power bills to my rep so he can find out what I need, what my needs are, and obviously I learned so much from the first visit. And then when they came on the second visit, it was a no-brainer for me. So that's why I chose ES Solar.
Yeah, I think I get told that all the time by my customers that, they appreciate that we, all of the technicians, we take the time to, have that first appointment where we're not trying to necessarily get anything done, right? We're just having a conversation, taking pictures. We send everything to our trusted engineers, and we build you a custom design for your home that we can later come back and show you and kind of have the conversation to see if it's going to be a good fit.
Korbin, I know you're probably super busy. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for jumping in from California on this podcast. All we're trying to do is, provide education or, provide information to whoever is watching or future customers that may be looking to go solar with whichever company, to make an educational decision. And it's never too late to go solar, right? You can always say tomorrow, or I'm going to wait for this, or I'm going to wait for that, but things keep changing and the solar keeps adapting to it. But not all companies adapt to the solar changes. And I've been with a company for 5 years now, and ES Solar has been great at adapting with all these changes that have happened, while many other companies have disappeared, right? So, so I do appreciate you jumping in. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time and talk to us. And for all of you guys watching, we appreciate you guys watching us. Stay tuned for another episode of The Huddle. Until next time. Thank you, Korbin.
Yeah, we'll see you later, Moise.